A few years ago, I began my High Holiday talk, my Yom Kippur talk, through sharing statistics on fears. Today, I want to begin through sharing some funny sayings about some of the fears that I mentioned a few years ago. Number one, the fear of public speaking, to which Jerry Seinfeld said, "They say more people are afraid of public speaking than they are of snakes." It doesn't seem to make sense to me. I mean, you don't see someone walking through the desert suddenly shouting, "Watch out, a podium!" Seinfeld also said, according to most studies, people's number one fear is public speaking, and number two is death. You mean to tell me you'd rather be the guy in the casket than the guy talking about the guy in the casket? It doesn't make any sense to me. Mark Twain said there are two types of speakers, those who are nervous and those who are liars. Fear of heights. Psychologists interviewed comic Steve Allen and said there are only two instinctive fears in man, the fear of loud noises, the fear of falling. "I have a great fear," said Steve without missing a beat, "of making a loud noise while I'm falling." Laurel Hamilton, "I'm not afraid of heights. It's the idea of falling from them that terrifies me." Or Stephen Wright, "A lot of people are afraid of heights. Not me, I'm afraid of widths." Fear of flying. George Carlin, "If black boxes survive air crashes, why don't they make the whole plane out of that stuff?" George Winters, "If God had really intended man to fly, he'd have made it easier to get to the airport." Billy Bob Thornton, "I don't have a fear of flying. I have a fear of crashing." Fear of spiders. "The only thing you have to fear is fear itself and spiders." Anonymous, "I saw a spider in my bathtub, so I got a piece of tissue paper. I very carefully lit it on fire, and then I burned the house down." "I hate spiders," writes Charlie, age 5. "Spiders are like little pieces of death wrapped in scary." Fear of death, the last one. Red Fox says, "Health nuts. You know all those people who spend their years fearing all the junk food, avoiding all those vices?" My wife. "Yeah, well, they're going to feel really stupid someday just lying in the hospital, dying of nothing." Woody Allen, "I don't want to achieve immortality through my work. I want to achieve immortality through not dying." And finally, Woody Allen, you all know this one, "I'm not afraid of death. I just don't want to be there when it happens." The annual Fear Talk, back by popular demand. Fine, not a single person demanded this, but it's back nonetheless. I don't recycle sermons. I do recycle topics. And frankly, I recycle this topic over and over again in different forms. We've had the warrior Jew conversation. We've had the superheroes conversation. We've had the fearlessly living in a fearful world conversation. We've had that conversation that instilled fear in everybody, especially Cantor Alana. It wasn't about fear. It's now dubbed the White Christmas Sermon, a fear none of us ever want to live out again, and none of us ever will. Those silent nights is another conversation for another day. Why do I keep returning to facing our fears? Because it's called the Yamim Noraim, the days not of awe, the days of fear. Yom Kippur is the day on the Jewish calendar when we face our fears. Why do we keep facing our fears? Because fears don't go away. "Rabbi, you gave the talk a year ago. We're good. We're fine. We checked it off." Fear happens annually and monthly and daily, weekly, daily, and moment to moment. We spend our lives in so much fear. Or to modify Mark Twain's quote, there are two types of people, those who admit they have fears and those who are liars. We all have fears, and most of those fears are justified because this was a year of fear. This was the year we had natural disasters. We always have them, but it seemed like we had more than ever before. This was the year of Hurricane Sandy. So much death, so much destruction. Did you know around the world, 30 million people fled their homes this year because of natural disasters? This was the year of Arizona wildfires where 19 firefighters lost their lives. This is a year where the wildfires rage on as we speak in California. This was a year of plane crashes and train crashes and chemical plant explosions. This was a year of terror. Terror abroad, as many of us gathered in this room to show solidarity with Israel as thousands of missiles rained down during Iron Dome into civilian populations, into cities within Israel. And now terror has just gone right across the border as we all are waiting on bated breath to see what happens in Syria as the Assad terrorist government has just gassed with chemical weapons hundreds and thousands, 100,000 murders of his people, his own people. This is terror. This is truly terror. But we don't even have to go overseas to hear about terror and to feel terror. We can just come, unfortunately, right back home. Because this was a year of Sandy Hook, where 20 children were gunned down, murdered in an elementary school, 6 teachers in all places, a school, the Holy of Holies. But it wasn't just Sandy Hook. Did you know this past year was the deadliest year in our country's history to be an elementary school student? There were 10 school shootings alone. January itself had 8 school shootings. It's a record that I hope we never, ever repeat. And of course, I don't have to tell you all that this was the year of the Boston bombing, the first successful attack on U.S. soil since 9/11, an attack that left 4 dead, a child dead, people dismembered, maimed, dozens, hundreds injured, and all of us on at least an emotional, spiritual level, scarred by the terror of that day's events. And that's not even getting into the personal horrors of the devastating medical diagnoses, the tragic accidents, the deaths of too many of our loved ones. Every year feels exceptional, but this year feels a little more exceptional than the rest, or at least so we hope that it's an exceptional year. Each and every one of us has fears. That's why we're here. That's the essence of Judaism. This is what we are doing today. We're heeding the words of the great Rabbi Nachman of Bratslav, who said, Kol ha'olam kulo, gesher tsar ma'od, that the whole world is a very narrow, scary, sometimes terrifying bridge. V'ha'ikar, and the thing, v'ha'ikar, the main thing, perhaps the only thing, and not such an easy thing, is lo lefached, is to not feel fear, is to lo lefached klal, is to feel no fear as we cross the narrow bridge of life. Or in the words of Marianne Williamson, love is what we are born with. Fear is what we learn. The spiritual journey is about unlearning the fear and remembering the love, accepting it and bringing it back into our hearts. And that, my friends, is a tall order. That, my friends, is a near impossible order, but nonetheless one which we are charged with every Yom Kippur. So how do we do this? How do we unlearn the fear? And how do we remember the love? Yom Kippur says it starts by showing up, which we have already done. And then it continues by being honest about our failures, about our shortcomings, about our sins, and about our fears. And then, as Jews, we want to understand them so we can take control of them. Because whether you're talking about the terror after a bombing, or the terror after losing a loved one, or the terror of facing our own mortality, terror causes us to feel vulnerable. It's interesting. The Hebrew word for terror, piguah, is the same word for vulnerability, pagia, right? What happens when we are scared? We are vulnerable. And when we are vulnerable, we are no longer proactive. We react in our lives. We are literally no longer in control. We are no longer the ones deciding our fate. We are no longer the ones dictating our lives and our destiny. And that's what Yom Kippur calls us back to do. To not live in reaction, but to be proactive, to reclaim our voice and our choice, to reclaim our power, taking it back from the terrorists, taking it back from that which terrorizes us, taking it back from that which we outsource it to, taking it back from our fears. And when we react, there are only 2 simple reactions. We all know them. You learn them in Psych 101. The first is flight, to take flight. When the bombs go off, when the terminal diagnosis is delivered, when the death of a loved one is pronounced, we run, we hide, we take cover, we take flight. It doesn't make us a coward. It's nothing to be gotten rid of or denied or ashamed of. Self-preservation is the starting point. Disappearing into the darkness when we're facing a terminal illness or that of a terminal illness of a loved one gives us a chance to get our bearings, to regroup, Denial when facing death or drifting away after a loved one and taking some time for ourselves makes perfect sense. It's absolutely necessary so again we can regroup and get a sense of where we are and what we have to do. There is a time when flight is the right reaction, but it's not the only reaction. There's another reaction. The opposite of flight is, of course, fight. And there is a time to fight, by the way, when the terrorists hit us, when totalitarian regimes strike, when bombs go off, when missiles rain down, when we are attacked. The psalmist says, Ohev Adonai Sinu Ra, those who love God hate evil and stand up and do something about it. It is our God-given duty to fight. There's a time and a place. It is even a mitzvah, a commandment to fight in a war, to fight against terror. But there are all kinds of fights that we are commanded to take on. When a loved one or when we are diagnosed with a serious illness, maybe a terminal illness, we're not Christian scientists. We don't say God will provide. There's a famous saying about the Bedouins. They say, have faith in God and tie up your camels. I think the Jews have a saying that goes something like this: have faith in God and find the best doctor, or raise the best doctor. Go get a second opinion, go get a third opinion, go get a 10th opinion, take the medicine, get the treatment, have the surgery, do what you gotta do to fight for life. And when tragedy occurs to somebody else or out in the world, we as Jews don't sit back and say all is suffering. We don't sit back and say kumbaya. We don't say it's not my country, it's not my own backyard. No, our mantra, our war mantra in Judaism is tikkun olam, that it's a broken, darkened world, and we have an obligation to get up, to get out there, to fix the world, to make it right, and yes, to fight. But flight or fight are not long-term solutions. Master educator Sir Ken Robinson, amazing man, amazing speaker and teacher, says, a life constantly taking flight turns us into a victim, powerless, weak, scared, and a life continually coming out fighting turns us into a Viking, making us angry and destroying that which is in our path. Living as a victim or a Viking is no way to live. Living in reaction is not why we are here. Living like this is certainly not the Jewish way across the narrow bridge of life. And thank God there is a third way, a way to reclaim our voice, a way to reclaim our choice, a way that is proactive, a way across the narrow bridge of life, and a way that was taught to me by a great speaker and author, Brené Brown, in her book, Daring Greatly, or you can watch her TED Talk. Brené Brown in her book says, the third way, the alternative to fight or flight, is called wholeheartedness, living with a whole heart. Once we are safe from the bombs, once we have shot down the missiles, once we have brought justice to the perpetrators, once we have accepted the diagnosis, once we have come to terms with the loss, the way across the scary, narrow bridge, the way through the dark, terrifying places, the way to unlearn the fear and to return to love is not through retreating backwards in flight, is not always through charging forward, fists up, ready to fight. The only way to move forward completely and wholly across that narrow bridge is moving forward wholeheartedly, moving forward being honest, moving forward being authentic, moving forward being real, moving forward like, of course, the Velveteen Rabbit. I'm sure all of you have read The Velveteen Rabbit or have had it read to you. If not, you'll go buy it and you'll read it to your children and your grandchildren. The story written by Marjorie Williams about a stuffed rabbit and his quest to become real. What is real? Asked the Velveteen Rabbit to the Skin Horse. Real isn't how you are made, said the Skin Horse. It's a thing that happens to you when a child loves you for a long, long time. Not just to play with you, but really, really loves you, then you become real. Does it hurt? Asked the rabbit. Does it hurt to become real? Sometimes, said the Skin Horse. When you are real, you don't mind being hurt. Does it happen all at once? Asked the rabbit. Or bit by bit? It doesn't happen all at once, said the Skin Horse. It takes a long time. That's why it doesn't happen to people who break easily or have sharp edges or who have to be carefully kept. Generally, by the time you are real, most of your hair has been loved off, and your eyes drop out, and you get loose in the joints and a little bit shabby and a little bit flabby. But these things don't matter at all, because once you are real, you can't be ugly, except to those who don't understand. And once you are real, you can't become unreal again. Real lasts forever. This has been a year of broken hearts thinking about the grief-stricken parents in Newtown, Connecticut, and what they must be feeling today. Broken hearts imagining what innocents are going through in Syria right now, having been gassed by their own government. It's a horrific thought, and it breaks our hearts. Broken hearts as we recall the shattered lives the day the bomb went off at the marathon. Broken hearts for each and every one of us personally, because we look back on this year at whom we lost, at everything we lost, and we each have lost so much. This was a year of brokenness. This was a year of broken lives. This was a year of broken hearts. But the broken heart doesn't make us less. It doesn't make us ugly. The broken heart is what makes us real, and ironically, it's the broken heart which makes us whole. The skin horse reminds us we're not here to avoid the sharp edges. We're not here to be carefully kept. We're not here to keep from getting broken. As you cross the narrow bridge of life, your heart will be broken again and again and again. But in the words of the Kutzker Rebbe, the only whole heart is a broken heart. Let me say that again. The only whole heart is a broken heart. To be wholehearted is to realize that our brokenness is what makes us real. And our brokenness is what makes our heart whole. And our brokenness is how we find our way home. It's in the broken moments that we have the opportunity to find our voice. And it's in those broken moments when our heart is wide open that we realize we have a choice. Do we take flight in retreat, or do we charge ahead in the fight, or do we live wholeheartedly, crossing the bridge like Antoinette Tuff? Do you know about Antoinette Tuff? Most of you don't, because wholehearted people rarely make the evening news. A couple of weeks ago, a gunman walked into a Georgia high school. After a year of bloody massacres in schools, we should have just expected more of the same, one more bloody mess on a long, bloody list. But that's not what happened. 20-year-old Brandon Hill entered the high school with an AK-47 and 500 rounds locked and loaded and ready to gun down teachers and children. Instead of a massacre, however, not a single shot was fired, not even with a gun in hand. All that happened was Antoinette Tuff, the school's older bookkeeper, stood her ground. Instead of taking flight and running for cover, understandably, like most would do, like everybody else there did, instead of putting up a fight and going on the attack or getting out of the way so the sharpshooters could do their thing, what did she do? She got into the face of the shooter. She stood eye to eye and she said, "You can't do this. I won't let you do this." And she proceeded to disarm the gunman with nothing but a whole heart. By the way, all of this is recorded on a 911 call. "Son," she said to the would-be murderer, "we're going to hate you if you do this. Do you know what that means? Is this what you want? Do you know what a legacy you will leave behind?" Hill proceeded to put down his ammunition. "It's going to be all right, sweetie." She called the gunman sweetie, right? "We all go through hell sometime in our lives. I've been down and out myself, but I pick myself up and you can too. I thought the same thing as you," she said to the gunman. "I tried to commit suicide last year after my husband left me. But look at me now. I'm still working and everything is okay." At this point, Hill proceeded to put down his gun, and Antoinette kept going right on. "It's going to be okay. Now we're not going to hate you, baby. It's going to be okay. It's a good thing you're giving up." At this point, Hill surrendered to the police without a shot fired, to which Antoinette said, "I'm proud of you. I just want you to know I love you." Antoinette didn't fight. Antoinette didn't take flight. All she did was disarm this would-be murderer through valiantly, courageously, inspiringly walking the narrow bridge of life, sharing her wounds, sharing her pain, sharing her broken heart, so all of those parents didn't have to have broken hearts. Her brokenness in many ways saved so many others. Her brokenness made others whole. Her brokenness made her whole. Yes, there is a time for retreat. There's a time to withdraw. There's a time to run and disappear and hide. And yes, there's a time to go to war. There's a time to launch cruise missiles. There's a time to draw red lines and stand by them and do something if they are crossed. I don't know about Middle East strategy. I don't know about U.S. diplomacy. I don't know about world politics or dealing with murderous regimes. At least I don't know right now, not today, not on Yom Kippur, because that's not what we're doing here. That's not the conversation that needs to be had. We stand here at the end of a long, painful, bloody year, each and every one of us in our own way, crossing the narrow bridge of life with hair loved off, with eyes drooping low, creaking joints a bit tattered, a bit shabby, a little more flabby, quite worn down, maybe completely worn out, with battle scars for having gone through the march, with a limp for having gone through the fight, with aches and pains for having seen our wars, each of us having a decision to make. Are we ready to pick up the pieces of our shattered lives? Are we willing to make a conscious choice this year to resume the journey across the narrow, scary bridge? Are we able to be vulnerable and open our hearts again to the people by our side journeying next to us? Are we ready to use our broken heart, to make us fearless, and to use our broken heart to make us love and be loved, and to use our broken heart to make us real, to use our broken heart to make us whole, to use our broken heart like the Apostle Paul would want us to. The Apostle Paul, I'm going to quote now, Paul McCartney that is, and his famous words, "Let it be." You see, McCartney had a broken heart. Most of us don't realize that. At age 14, Paul McCartney lost his mother to cancer. It devastated him. It closed his heart as it would any child at any age, and he never fully recovered. But obviously he went forward in life and did some great things and had some tense moments. And one of them was when he was making the White Album. And during this time of the White Album, he had a dream. He found himself in times of trouble. And who do you think came to him? Mother Mary, his mother, Mary, the woman he missed, the woman he loved. And what do you think Mother Mary said to him? Speaking words of wisdom, "Let it be." As you cross the narrow, terrifying bridge of life, let it be. After the bombs go off and you are safe, let it be. After the shootings take place and justice is served, let it be. After the diagnosis is in and all options exhausted, let it be. And in the hour of darkness, she is standing right in front of me. After the divorce, after the deaths, after the devastation, after the hurts, after the heartaches, after the sorrow, after the loss, after the pigua, the terror, and the pagia, a heart ripped open, speaking words of wisdom, let it be. Let it be, she said, and keep on walking the bridge, unlearning the fear. Let it be, keep on moving forward, remembering the love. Let it be, and keep on journeying forth, picking up your broken heart again and again and again. And when the broken-hearted people living in the world agree, this is what it means to be real. This is what it means to be wholehearted. This is why we are here. This is our voice. This is our choice to let go. Let go of the fear. To let God in, remembering the love. To move forward across the narrow bridge of life. Becoming real. Once you are real, you will always be real. Becoming wholehearted. The only whole heart is a broken heart. Becoming certain. There will be an answer. There's always an answer. If we let go, if we let God, and if we let it be. Words are on your handouts.
When I find myself in times of trouble, there's a vision I can see. Speaking words of wisdom, let it be. And in my hour of darkness, she is standing right in front of me, speaking words of wisdom. Let it be. Let it be. Let it be. Let it be. Oh, let it be. Kol shenavakesh Od yesh mifras lavan ba'ofech mul anan shahor kaved kol shenavakesh lu yehi.
For though they may be parted, there is still a chance that they will see. There will be an answer, let it be. Kol shenavakesh lu yehi. Lu yehi. Hallelujah. Kol shenavakesh lu yehi.
אז תן שלווה ותן גם כוח לכל אלה שנאהב, כל שנבקש לו יהי.
I wake up to the sound of music. There's a vision I can see, speaking words of wisdom. Let it be.
Let it be. Let it be. Let it be. There will be an answer. Let it be. You heal, you heal, hallelujah. Kol shenavakesh lu yehi. Let it be, let it be, let it be. There will be an answer. Let it be.
Thank you to Aishir. Aishir, as always, brings so much more to the conversation than just words. They bring feeling, they bring kavanah, they bring intention.